Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Tarryn. We're thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled to have read your book. We've actually interviewed you before, so um, there are a few authors that we have read twice, and you are one of them. So,
Yay!
but this go round, we read An Honest Lie by Tarryn Fisher, and a thrilling psychological thriller. I guess I want to start by asking really if this is your preferred genre.
Psychological thrillers.
Yes.
Oh, yes. I tried writing romance for a while. I mean, I did write romance for
Yes.
a while, but it's not, love isn't as interesting to me as the human psyche. So I like to mess with that more than love. There's more outcomes with the human mind than there is for love. So I find it more exciting to write about thrillers.
And what was it like? I've read a couple of your books. And what was this book like for you to write? Can you just tell us a little bit about what was going on in the world, maybe, and like for you, not like like pandemic type stuff when you were writing it, and sort of like what that experience was like?
Well, we were past the pandemic, and I actually wanted to write something where women went somewhere. Like,
Right.
let's go somewhere. So I decided to go to Vegas in my own mind to kind of get a break. I had just written An Honest Lie, which is a very kind of suffocating, closed in book. So I needed something exciting. So that's why I took these women to Vegas and, set them loose on an adventure.
And have you been to Vegas, or did you go to Vegas for this, or was it just, how did you do your research about sort of like setting?
So I hate Vegas. I hate anywhere that's hot. I can't handle the heat, which is why I live in Washington. But I would go there to do my research and to write the book, but I would just stay in my room the whole time in the air conditioning and sort of peek out. Or I'd go walk the strip, but I would be very sweaty and aggravated. So, but I go to wherever the setting is, and this time I chose a hot place. So I had to go to this hot place.
And while you're in Vegas, are you actually writing, or is this just like taking on a lot of notes and information about like what you see, and like what does that look like?
It's both. It's I'm eavesdropping and watching people, and I'm, taking sentences. What is the vibe like? What do people say when they're in Vegas? And they say and do crazy things. So it's an endless feeding zone for a writer. So I'll go and I'll watch people, but then I'll also have dinner in a restaurant. I'll take my computer and I'll work through dinner, or I'll be in my hotel room working. Um, so it's definitely a sensory experience to be able to go there so you can really authenticate whatever vibe is in the book.
I kind of like this. I feel like this works really well, that you're like on site peeking in and like putting things in,
Yeah.
and like, it's kind of really cool.
Yeah, there
Um,
was a line in An Honest Lie where there's a guy just running across a courtyard screaming something about a bird and
mhm.
holding his shoe in the air. And that happened in real life. Like I just was typing that as it was happening and I put it in the
Oh,
book.
that's cool. Now, and I feel like this is such a cliche question, but like, how do you come up with new ideas? I feel like psychological thrillers must be so hard to find like fresh new ideas, but like this, An Honest Lie was amazing for that, because I don't think anybody had ever read anything like even remotely close to that storyline.
Um, so funny thing is my ex-husband actually gave me the idea for the book. Um, I were still close and we all our families spend holidays together. So he actually said to me, "Hey, this would be a really good book idea." And I was like, "Yes, yes." And I sort of ran with his book idea. So now I consider it sort of alimony. Like if he has a good book idea, he has to pay up. Um, it's owed to me.
I love that. And so there's a cult in this book for anybody who hasn't read
Yes.
it. Um, how did you like, do you have past experience researching this? I don't know, like how does one go about figuring out how a cult works?
So I grew up in South Africa. And then in Christianity, my dad was a very interesting character. He was a racehorse trainer and he was a pastor, which kind of contradicts each other, the gambling and the religion. But he pulled this off, and he also accumulated his own cult kind of with his belief system. So while I was never in his cult, I was always around my dad's cult, and he had, I mean, followers and meetings and gatherings, and there were always people at my house. So I kind of got a firsthand account of cult life and the way people's minds work because my dad was, in fact, a cult leader.
So I would like to say that I apologize. I definitely asked that very lightly, not knowing it was going to be so close to home. Yeah, that was not my intention, of course.
I mean, I don't mind talking about it. It just is part of my story. And then I went to a very religious college. I didn't know it was going to be as strict as it was, but my college also turned out being very cult-like. And I was just observing there as well. I stayed, I graduated, and it was a very strange experience, but I would never take it back. It was so interesting to be in this very, very religious school, watching everybody sort of live out these procedures. And I had to wear pantyhose to go to college and at class every day in Florida. It was 100-degree heat, and I was in pantyhose. I wore skirts every day. We weren't allowed to touch boys or go on dates. When we were freshmen, we had a bedtime. So again, I went right from my dad's boiling pot into a different type of boiling pot. But it was also interesting. Like, I would never take any of it back. I'm so glad that I was able to channel my past into my creativity.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, obviously, every experience you had led you to be the writer you are today, I'm sure. Let's talk a little bit about your characters. I read The Wives as well. And I feel like this question is also pertinent to that book. Your writing often explores very complex and sort of morally ambiguous characters. Can you tell us about the process? Because your books are very character driven. We got to know Rainey very, very well in this book, and I'd love to know like the process, but also like what draws you to explore like the psyche of and more often than not women.
Oh, well, I think I believe that all humans are morally ambiguous characters. They just don't know it. Put a person in the right situation, in an interesting situation, you're going to see how they're going to work themselves out. So I like to just create a character, I mean, largely based on myself and other women I know, and then toss them into the fire and see what they'll do. And I'm putting myself in those situations. So I'm wondering, what would you do? And more often than not, I'm going to be shady and I'm going to do whatever it takes to survive. So I think part of the book is exploring my willingness, how I would survive, what I would do to survive. And women are very creative survivalists. I know so many women and know all their interesting stories. So I feel like this is just the way we work. We're interesting. We're going to sort out our problems in an interesting way. And it's not like it's going to be in gray area a lot of the time, especially if there's children involved.
Right. And like I said, when I touched on it a bit about sort of like the strong female characters that are usually part of your stories that defy societal expectations. I was just wondering if there's any personal experiences or influences from your own life that have inspired you to write such empowering female voices.
I think it's people that I know. I think it's my readers. I've always gathered stories. Women have told me a lot of stories. And so just growing up, always hearing women's stories, you start thinking women are strong characters. They know how to do this survival thing really well. So I've gleaned stories off of the stories women have told me. I've taken their personal, and that's what I find. All women are very inspiring to me. There isn't a woman that bores me. There isn't a woman that I find uninteresting. I just think we are internal color explosions. So it's everyone around me. It's my own ability to defy societal norms. The other woman, my mom, seeing everybody do it. We do it. And I love it.
I love that color explosion. Let's talk about your villains. I read an article where you said that you love to write a good villain. And Braith obviously was well, I mean, one of many villains in this one. I'm not the main villain by any means, but what was it like writing her character and figuring out how that all interjected with Rainey and Grant?
Braith, she was an interesting one to write because I feel like a lot of women have been put in that position where they're friends with somebody who has another motive, an ulterior motive, and it wasn't really Braith's fault to me when it boiled down to it. It was very circumstantial. I see a lot of women just dealing with their circumstances, and I think Rainey saw that too. And I really wanted to promote a strong female theme in the book to where they were, at the end, they were understanding each other and talking it out rather than placing blame or causing the woman to be the cause of this conflict in the book. She just had Rainey had a very, this is what it is attitude. We're going to work through this. And I'm going to kind of show non-judgment. And so that's the type of attitude I feel like women should have more with each other, more of an understanding. So I wanted to display that in their relationship in the book. But to me, all the horrors that women commit, all the things, the terrible things that we do are never even a tip of the things that men do. So I like to promote this idea of understanding and forgiveness within my books.
Is that why you put in the part in New York when they met at the end?
Yes. Yes, that was important to me. Women talking things out. Like, yeah, we do things, our trajectories sometimes hurt each other, but if you go to the root of the cause, the root of the problem, there's usually, you can find a lot of understanding there. You usually have an aha moment, but women don't talk enough to really understand that about each other.
It's interesting you say that because I feel like women talk a lot more than men talk.
Mm-hmm.
But what
Yeah.
they don't seem to get in as much difficulties around around emotions, and like women are so emotionally charged that I feel like women are always fighting and men aren't, but they don't talk to each other.
Yeah, I don't think we're talking about the right things because we've always got our defenses up. There's always a spiky communication going on rather than a a vulnerable conversation. I think we find it maybe hard to be vulnerable with each other in certain areas where there's competitiveness involved, where there's men involved.
Mhm.
So we're always talking, yeah, but we're not doing the right type of talking.
Oh, that's interesting. It's probably very spot on. So just on the theme of villains, I wondered if from your past books, all of them was there a favorite villain that you had? Maybe you can pique our listeners' interest to go and check out one of your older books.
Wow. I like to call up villains in romance. Those are my favorite villains because there's nothing that quite gets to a woman's heart like someone moving in on her partner or our cackles go up. So I have a villain in a series I wrote. It's called the Love Me with Lies series, The Opportunist, Dirty Red, and Thief. And I wrote an entire book, Dirty Red, about a villain. And people were so angry that I wrote the book, but it was very necessary to the series. And then once they read the whole series, they're like, I love to hate her. I hate her so much. So I really enjoyed writing her. And then in 2013, I had a really rough year. And I think I was at the peak of my anger and I wrote a serial killer book. I just wanted to deal with all the things I was feeling. So I wrote a book called Marrow. And she just took care of all my issues in that book. So it's a woman's vengeance anger book, but I really enjoyed writing her.
Oh, wow, that's fascinating. Um, let's switch gears a little bit. So you wrote Never Never with Coho, Colleen Hoover.
Mhm.
What was that experience like, and why did you decide to join forces with her?
Well, we've been friends for a really long time, and she's like a fountain of book ideas. So she's always telling me her book ideas, and I'm like, that one, please write that one. And then she didn't write it, and she kept writing other things, and I'd say, write that book idea you told me about. And she didn't do it. So I went ahead and I wrote the first chapter and I sent it to her, and I said, keep going. And so she wrote the next chapter. And then she sent it back to me. And then I wrote the next chapter. And then what we started to do was trying to box each other in with the chapters, like write each other into a corner that we couldn't get out. So it really was just a fun friend thing that we were doing back and forth. And then we decided to publish it. And because of the way her contract was set up, we had to publish it in 3 parts. So originally it came out maybe a year apart and it was split into 3 books. So I'm just glad that it's finally one book all together. It's kind of our love baby, I guess, like our friendship love baby.
That's amazing. That's a great story. I love that. And did you have to change a lot after the fact because of the way that you had initially written it?
No, we didn't. And there's a part in the book that a lot of readers will come back and say, but what happened? You never, closed out this open hole. And it was because we were writing it in parts. And once it was written in the first book, it was already published and we couldn't go back to change it.
Right.
And we'd already, so there were things like that that happened.
That's awesome. I want to know also about your fan base. You have a very dedicated fan base. People that really love your writing and follow you very closely. So I'd love to know how you interact with those people, and have they influenced your reading and storytelling, or your writing and storytelling? And I feel like they have, because you had just said previously that you get a lot of stories from people that you're talking to. So
Yes, so the group is called the PLNs, the Passionate Little Nutcases. I have a tattoo right here. They named themselves, and they came because I was writing the series I referenced earlier, and the second book about that villain. They were constantly messaging me, DMing, posting on my Facebook, "Where's the book? Where's the book?" And at one point I said, you are a bunch of crazy, passionate little nutcases. And then the next thing you know, they'd started a group. I was invited to the Facebook group. And it was very reader based. They ran the group, but it kept growing and growing. And then I would go to book signings and we'd meet up and we'd meet up. And so it's actually a very in person. I know these women, they know me. We've been communicating for years. We communicate in the group. So they're really more than readers to me. I mean, they're enough that I would tattoo the group name on my body, because these are female supporters of my ideas and the concepts in the book. They are an entire marketing team for me. Like, they are very loyal. I love them so much. I owe my entire career to this reader base that I have.
that's incredible. And I'm sure a lot of other authors would be extremely envious of that. And I looked them up on Facebook as you were just telling me this, and there's over 12,000 of them. That's wild. Can you tell me what the reaction was like when you posted that you had the tattoo?
Um, I don't really look at the reactions. I'm a very do my own thing non-reaction person, but
Okay,
I
fair
got
enough.
I got a lot of tags, and there's a lot of tattoos in our group. So I share the tattoos whenever they get the similar one or tattoos of my words. I always will share the tattoo and say till death do us part, because these women are essentially getting my words on them forever.
Wild. And So does that extend to reviews as well? You don't read your reviews?
I don't know. It's just, it can drive an artist crazy. It's a matter of fact thing that I write books. I write books with my style. I've now been doing it for 20 years, so it is what it is. If you don't like it, you can move on. If you do like it, you can stick around. But it's not really my business, the reviews. It's not for me. That's for readers. So I don't read them. It'll get, it makes you crazy. So you have to develop boundaries around your own art that can keep you sane.
I've had other authors tell me that they get the reviews, but only if they're 5 stars. They don't read anything else unless it's a 5-star review.
Oh no, I would want to know what I was doing wrong. I would go read all the low star reviews and then I would like make a plan to be a better writer. But
Oh,
in the
geez.
end, this just is the writer I am. So I don't want to get caught up in, I'm flawed. There's going to be things people don't like. But then there is this group that does like me. So those are the ones I write for and focus on.
Yeah, that's really it's funny because when we're picking books, we get a lot of feedback. And I mean we're just picking them, we're not writing them. But like everybody has an opinion about what we're reading all the time. And it's like you can't please everybody, right? So
No, no, you can't with anything. So I'm definitely not going to do it. It's the art.
Um, I would love to know, as an established author, if there's advice that we have a lot of aspiring authors in our community, who are looking to develop their own unique voice and tackle complex themes in their work. And I'd love to know if you have any advice or anything that you can impart that would be helpful.
Um, when I was about 20 years old, is when I really wanted to start developing my voice as an author. And I leaned heavily on a lot of Stephen King's advice in his book on writing, because he has a very strong voice. And his advice was to explore all forms of art. So I always go back to that, even if I feel like I'm losing my voice. It's museums, music, and movies. And I binge that. All people's art, other people's art, the colors, the sounds, the vibrations. And I feel like if you combine all of those things, you discover your own voice in everybody else's art. But I have to use art as the base for my own voice. So read, 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 go to museums, go outside and study branches, trees, all of it. It just, your own thoughts on a topic will develop the more that you think about it. And that is a very unique voice that readers want. Only you can come up with that voice by conditioning your own thoughts and conditioning the way that you see the world and kind of delighting in it. Like, oh, I like the way I just put that. I like the way that I'm seeing that. That's really interesting. And zoning in on that and really listening to it and giving it a stage in your own mind.
Thank you. It's really interesting. I would also like to know what you're working on next.
Oh, I have another thriller. I'm in the middle of the editing process. So right now I'm working in writer's hell in the flames of trying to make this salvageable and better. And the thriller is called Good Half Gone. I can't really talk about it yet because I haven't released the blurb or the cover, but that will be out in February.
Cool, that's exciting. And you can't tell us anything about it yet. That's fine.
It's yeah, no, not yet. It's intense like The Wives. I went
Okay.
back to the same type of twisty Wives intensity.
Okay. And will you take a break after that, or will you just dive right back in?
I don't know how to take a break. I've been writing since I was 6 every day, all the time. So I'll probably dive back in, but maybe give myself a palate cleanser. I'll go back, write a romance book, write a YA, something else.
Yeah. Very good. And as a last question, I'd love to know what's on your nightstand or what you binge, podcast or Netflix or anything that gives us
Um,
insight into the author herself.
right now, I have these on my nightstand. They're Jocelyn Jackson thrillers.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I love Jocelyn Jackson. And I listened to Mr. Ballin. pretty
Okay.
much every day of my life, who is a podcaster who talks about the strange, dark, and mysterious. And he
Hmm.
was a former Navy SEAL. He's an excellent storyteller. And his strange, dark, mysterious stories are very disturbing, but they give me peace for some reason.
Does he know you listen to him?
um, he follows me on Instagram, which was like a screaming fangirl moment for me. So I do post about him sometimes. He likes the messages, and then I scream and fangirl more. So
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me today, and for our readers to be able to get this little tap into this interview and all the things that are Tarryn Fisher.
thank you guys. It's such an honor every time. I appreciate you so much because I would not have a career without the readers. So thank you for always supporting.
Absolutely. Well, we look forward to the next book. And I
Thank
hope to
you.
talk to you again soon. Take care.
Thanks, Erin. Bye.